Welcome everyone to the monthly meeting of the Athens in Motion Commission. I'll pull up our agenda so we can take a quick look. Let's see. Too much. All right. And we're going to welcome Randy here in a minute, but any additional modifications before we get started?
I'm getting a little bit of lag from you.
There being none.
Is that just me, or?
Yeah,
It's
a little
probably
bit of lag from Lauren.
Okay, it's not too bad, but.
I could move into another room at some point. What internet am I on? I'm on my internet. Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I second.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Teresa. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, the agenda has passed. As you see on here, we have our newest Athens in Motion Commissioner with us today, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can welcome Randy. Randy, welcome to the Athens in Motion Commission. Would you like to tell the public a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're excited about in joining this crew of transit nerds?
Okay, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, my name is Randy Halstead. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. We moved down here about 3 years ago. My daughter received a scholarship to go to law school at UGA, and when she graduated, she decided she loved it so much she wasn't moving back. And every time we visited, we fell that much more in love with the area. So we decided to move down here. We looked all over Georgia, trying to stay, close to the Athens area, to be maybe 20 minutes outside. Settled on Winterville, mainly because it's such a nice, little town, and the fact that the Firefly Trail was going to connect it into Athens, that was a biggie for me. And I see progress is moving, so. And then I saw the opportunity here for the Athens in Motion Commission, that there was an opening, and I love the cycle. I'm out usually 3-4 times a week, and wanted to be part of this activity and keep things moving. No pun intended. Thank you.
Well, you are on the right commission to keep things moving.
All right.
Yeah, and it's great to have someone out from Winterville, part of our group. Yes, we're also excited about the Firefly Trail, and we'll get an update from Todd later here in the meeting about how that's going. And I'm further down the line from you. I'm a little bit off the Firefly Trail. And your daughter went to UGA. We have a couple of UGA folks here. Mark's a professor. Jake, Aaron, and I, and also Roswell all work at UGA. We try not to be an all UGA affiliated commission, but sometimes that's how it works. Jobs in this town.
Big employer, big employer.
Yes, big employer. All right. Well, welcome. And you'll see our meetings are pretty packed. We're going to try and keep things moving along, but let us know if you have questions along the way or want the status of something, and we'll try and fill you in as quickly as possible, or we'll, maybe someone will say, I'll tell you outside of this meeting, or I'll give you more information. But we're so excited to have you, Randy. Welcome.
All right. Thank you. And look forward to working with everyone.
Great. So Jake has asked for a couple of minutes to go over the minutes. So Jake, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to share?
I can share, I guess. Am I sharing? Yes. So just really a couple of things. I am not sure whether we need to go word for word on exactly what somebody says for a motion. I clean these up a little bit to try to make them totally coherent because often they're exchanges between two people. And people add stuff and there's usually a final version, but it's not necessarily somebody speaking as if they're writing a textbook. So the only thing I did with this one is I think Stephen used the word collaboration here instead of coordination. And coordination made more sense to me in terms of sending something forward. So coordination between the repavement schedules, because repavement schedules are inanimate and they can't collaborate. I just wanted to note that everyone's term can be found here on our commission page. Just one of the first things you see is a full listing of the length of everyone's term. So that's, if you want to know what your term is, that's how to know.
Oh, thanks, Jake.
There was a discussion about that and everyone, there was
Yeah.
it's not conclusive. So, and I think that we can re-up in this commission for another term. Is that true? I assume, I mean, that's how the Greenway Commission works.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
It's 5-year terms with a limit of 2 consecutive terms. So you can be in for a decade
Yeah.
if you want.
Right, but it would depend on how long. I mean, we had a lottery for the first terms. So yeah, that would be kind of.
Thank you, Teresa.
I just wanted to mention, so I highlighted these things and I think maybe you got some of this stuff, but I just wanted to mention that this is in-person, being able to distribute in-person surveys is a really big equity issue. And you guys talked about our, Latinx Spanish-speaking population, but also like anyone who doesn't have reliable Wi-Fi, like sending them a postcard with a QR code that they can scan and go online may or may not be a way to engage them. And we talked about this on the Lexington Corridor Committee committee a little bit, of needing to, have the opportunity for in-person input and do pop-ups and all that kind of stuff. So if I had been there, that would have been my comment. Wanted to mention about tabling that the Greenway Commission is /Friends Group is planning on doing some tabling at the Bishop Farmers Market. That's one of the things that's on my list to coordinate. So by the way, Randy, so I'm the vice chair of the Greenway Commission as well, and I'm the Greenway. This commission has to have somebody from the Greenway Commission on it. So I got that through that straw, which was a great straw. I'm not saying anything bad about the straw. So yeah, we are planning on tabling, and we probably could easily do a joint table if you guys wanted to do that. I mean, we're so closely sort of related. So I'm going to reach out to Sarah, who I assume is still running the market. And you're supposed, as a nonprofit, you're supposed to register like in January, but we were like, that seems, especially in January, it seemed really unlikely that the farmers market would even happen. But I'm sure that I can I'm sure that she would let us come there on sort of an ad hoc basis. I don't imagine that there's a huge amount of, I don't imagine that space is at a big premium right now. I don't remember why I highlighted materials in Spanish. I think you answered that question. I just wanted to say that, this question, Aaron made this point about transportation public works getting less money because of the gas tax, but I didn't know whether that was because it had been lowered or eliminated or temporarily suspended or what. So if somebody who's more hip to the politics of transportation in Georgia could maybe make sure that that is correct.
Lauren, didn't they talk about that in some T-Splosh, that it's not getting, it's staying at the state level and not getting dispersed at the local level? Is that correct? I thought I remember them talking about that, if you remember.
I am afraid I do not. So I
Okay.
won't pretend that I do.
Well, I believe that then, and that's what I remember discussing, but anyway, I guess I'm not gonna say that's the gospel, but that's what I remember discussions evolving, is that the state was keeping that for state roads and not dispersing them for local communities.
All right, for the sake of the minutes, I have vagified the phrasing, so we're not making a claim about that. In any case, it sounds like local municipalities are getting less in gas tax revenues. Okay. Just wanted to mention I'm still tweeting at Pete Buttigieg, no response yet, but it's just a matter of time. I wanted to suggest, you guys talked about sort of coordination between the Greenway Network Plan and Athens in Motion Plan, and I thought it might be useful at a future meeting to have Susie Haggard, who's the head of the planning committee of the Greenway Commission, maybe a little further along, and Daniel's in on these sessions to some extent, I think. And I'm not, because I can't, to have her come when the GNP is further along and maybe, talk about what their sort of overall picture is. So that's, a possibility. Also, Princeton Mill, of course, the New Bacon Highway launch passed. So the thread is over. I wrote, but I found this to be so obnoxious. I just couldn't help but say, I didn't even know there were historic ruins, but I, suggest that we should plan some sort of big excursion, maybe a series of excursions to show up in the neighborhood and investigate.
I'll charter a bus if anybody wants.
Sounds good. Maybe one of those, bachelor party buses that can blast music.
Ooh.
For party bus?
Yeah, party bus. That's right. I was trying to think of the party bus. I'll delete this stuff in the final minutes. That's all I have.
Oh, I really do want to see the Princeton Mill ruins, though. I really want to see
I'll
that.
rephrase this then. Maybe I'll see.
Yeah, I found the bridge. I mean, the bridge is transportation.
Okay.
Okay, Jake, anything else?
That's it. Sorry, I took up more time even than I said. I've been talking all day and I can't seem to stop. So
No, that's great. Thank you. And thank you for your suggestions too. Yeah, it'd be good to have Susie come by. We're about to have a couple of meetings that are pretty full. Maybe not so full. Maybe that's just my head. So with that, unless anyone else has any questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. Can I get a second?
Once he takes the snarky stuff out.
I'll second it.
Okay, so it's Mark and Teresa again. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. All right. Thank you again, Jake, for your service. Moving on.
Sharing. Stop.
All right. So next we have about 30 minutes total for staff presentations and updates, and this excludes Daniel's general update. So we'll have Hawthorne Avenue with Ronnie for about 15 minutes, 15 minutes on Barber Street, and 5 minutes from Todd with park updates, park planning. So I will kick it over to Ronnie for a presentation about Hawthorne Avenue. This is more of a transportation, car-centric kind of report, right, Ronnie, versus the usual stuff we're receiving about.
Yes, thank you, Lauren. And so today we're presenting to you Hawthorne at Oglethorpe intersection improvement. The intersection improvement program initiated a matrix initially to rank our list of intersections, and this intersection came on top. We proceed with a concept approval that was made in 2019, and following that, we have developed concept plans. Daniel, did you want to share a screen with the plans, or do you want me to share them? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you could share them. I don't have them pulled up at the moment.
Yeah, no problem. That's interesting. Okay, there we go. I wasn't able to see them on my screen. I've rotated the view here to be true north, so you're all more familiar with the site. And what we are doing here is operational improvements, including full replacement of the signal system that we have there. The proposed system would be on actual steel signal poles versus what we have today on strain wires between wooden poles and existing electric poles in the area. This proposal include better control of traffic flow and improved sight distances, in addition to elimination of two through traffic on the northbound on Hawthorne. The project will impact all sidewalks within the area, so therefore we are replacing the sidewalks within these areas. We recognize that Hawthorne has been identified as a tier 1 bike facility. However, there has not been funding, and therefore we don't anticipate that project to be moving forward anytime soon. Therefore, there's no bike accommodation is not part of this project, even though there are substandard bike facilities. So we're not really showing all that within the plans. And that was the direction we've received from Hillary back when we had this project approved by Mayor and Commission. I don't really recall, it's not clear to me if we have run this by Athens in Motion. I don't think Athens in Motion was in place at that point. We just took Hillary's thoughts on this project. You may also, and Daniel, I'm assuming you've shared with Athens in Motion the plans for this project. I want to go into the...
I believe so.
Okay. I don't want to go into the more detailed, this is sheet by sheet and segment by segment on this project, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Oh. Daniel, when did you share this? Because I don't remember it.
I thought I forwarded the email along.
I got it a couple days ago. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
I got it.
Good,
Ronnie, I had a
okay.
question. So there's bike lanes along Oglethorpe and along Tallahassee for large stretches of those two roads. How will bikes, what's going to be done to accommodate bikes crossing Hawthorne safely? Or has that been part of the considerations?
Yes, the plan here is for bikers to utilize existing travel lanes due to the limited right of way we have in this intersection.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Will there be any sort of the bike lanes? I'm trying to remember how far the bike lanes go down. I think, do they end at Sunset on Oglethorpe, and then you become part of the traffic lane, I believe. Just some thinking about some signage as these transitions happen from sharing the full lane to going into a bike lane and vice versa. I don't know how that's handled to alert drivers.
Yeah, I like this most days, and yeah, at sunset when you're coming towards this from Normal Town, yeah, that's when you lose the bike lane.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then it picks up after, if you're going in that direction from Normal Town, it picks up after the fire station.
Right. And there are plans for Tallahassee Road, and so it could become, an important connection. And so just the more we can think about that and safely letting bikes transit this, traffic speeds aren't terribly high along here. So, some sort of a shared facility wouldn't be totally inappropriate, but it needs to be signed appropriately and drivers alerted. That's the main thing.
These
And
are
if I
good.
may, it may be sort of a
Yeah,
moot
go ahead.
point, but like we would go from our house on Sunset to Hampton Heights Pool, for example, and we would try to go on bikes. And so navigating that on bikes as a family is significantly a challenge. My wife did not like that when we did that. And then obviously Bishop Park is right there. So anyone that's coming from Forest Heights and wants to bike as a family up to Bishop Park is significantly limited due to this intersection.
Ronnie, we have that sidewalk connection now to Bishop Park, right? There's or I guess Daniel might know this
Yes.
too.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
From
So what's really changing with this is it's losing a flyover lane, and I know it's probably not the correct terminology, but some wider sidewalks. Is that right?
Yes. So the sidewalk would be a typical 5-foot sidewalk with 2 to 3 foot beauty strip when possible. Also, we're eliminating, like you mentioned, Aaron, the 2 receiving lanes on the northbound. We're eliminating that to 1 receiving lane. So that would eliminate some of the yield that's happening between traffic flowing to the west on Oglethorpe and making a right turn on Hawthorne versus the traffic that's going through Hawthorne. And also we are eliminating a slip-through lane at the corner closer to the fire station. That's the northwest corner. So that also would provide safety crossings for pedestrians by eliminating that slip-through and reducing
Oh, Mark,
the
did you hear
crosswalk
that?
length.
Ronnie, I have a question, and this may not be in your wheelhouse, but all of those right turn lanes conflicting with those crosswalks scare me, because when someone's turning right, they're not really paying that much attention to whatever pedestrian activity is. They're kind of looking over their shoulder to the left, so there's a pedestrian coming. So is there any sort of no turn on red spec for these corners?
I don't believe that's the intent. We will look at that closely. I don't recall that specific information. And I was gonna say, in the final design phase, which comes after preliminary design approval by elected officials, we will define our markings and final markings with signage, and therefore we will identify those elements. It's good that you're bringing those great points that you're making today. We will make sure those transition signage markings for the bikers would be there. Prohibited turns on red would be there as well. I would imagine it would be there. At this point, I cannot confirm.
I go through that intersection fairly frequently, and I do see a lot of pedestrians going through, the occasional bike. So it's definitely an area of concern. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Ronnie, the northeast corner, I noticed that it looks like there's marking kind of gore strips. I wonder, would there be any benefit of turning part of that into more of a bump out with a physical, like a raised curve there, reducing, like the east to west distance that people have to walk across the road, and also maybe slowing kind of changing the radii there so that people turning right slow down? Is there any benefit to making that vertical barrier instead of just a striped barrier?
We can ask the designers on that. My wild guess here, it would be truck traffic, but again, truck traffic may be able to mount mountable curb as well.
Right.
That does not shorten the crosswalk. Just looking at the alignment, like I said, I would guess that due to yeah, let me see. I mean, we're getting right of way anyway in that corner. We'll take a look at it closer in the final design phase and identify what could we do in that gourd area.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Stephen. Thanks for asking about that. I have two questions. One of them is related to Teresa's comment about crossing when people are turning. I bike this more than I walk it. Do we have beg buttons or pedestrian buttons that signal at this intersection, or is it automatic?
Yes, it would be. Currently, I don't know. I'm not sure who was speaking.
I run this quite a bit, and there are beg buttons here.
Big buttons. Yeah.
So I guess then one option that Teresa might be amenable to is having the lead time. If someone hits the button, I don't know if it makes sense in terms of traffic, but letting pedestrians cross first. And
Definitely.
then,
Yeah, definitely. That's a pedestrian advance signal.
okay, pedestrian advance signal. Okay. And then the other one confirmation on is, so there's now going to be 4 lanes. There's going to be a turn lane across from Bishop Park. So that way you have a turn lane to turn left into like the Y there.
Yes.
Is that correct? That is so great. I mean, I wanted to, I was taking swim lessons at the Y. I wanted to bike there, and it just really scared me trying to figure out how to make that left-hand turn. So, even though we don't think of this as like bike improvements, just having that turn lane is really great. So I'm excited to see that.
Awesome.
Any other questions, comments for Ronnie?
Ronnie, I'll just say it doesn't need, it probably goes without saying, but as Tim Griffith said, this is one of the most challenging intersections in Athens. And, we get a lot of through traffic on Sunset because people just don't want to wait. That bottleneck is just such a challenge that's coming northbound on Hawthorne, crossing over Oglethorpe. And so, yeah, thanks for trying to tackle this one.
Yep, no problem.
Hey, Ronnie, is there any verbiage or anything that you need approved for this by the commission?
Not necessarily a vote, but similar to the calendar 20, when there is no multiple concepts provided, you may provide your comments along with your review and approval. I don't know if you guys have taken a vote, and if you are, yes, just along with the comments that stated today to make sure we have adequate signage and markings for transition on this corridor, on both corridors.
Excellent. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Hey, Lauren, I just want to add one thing. I mean, I've thought for a long time, it's really unfortunate that it is so hard for kids to safely get to the Y and to Bishop Park along there. And maybe for some future T-Spalos priority, figuring that out or trying to make that safer for kids who live, in the nearby neighborhoods. I think that would be a great thing. So, you're a brave cyclist, but, we're all about making it safe for all ages and skill levels. So just something to think about as we think about future projects.
Thank you, Mark. That's a great point. Yeah, these amenities are so close in terms of proximity, but so far away in terms of safety. All right. Another great project coming up. This one is Barber Street. So we have results from public input. Remember, we and this is to fill Randy in a little bit. We had 2 regular meetings and 2 special called meetings about this project. Barber Street is a tier 1 bike and ped project, I think, or it's tier 1 ped and then a different tier for bike. I'm trying to remember. And we had a couple options. Go ahead.
I think it's both tier 1.
Okay. Yeah. And there's been an opportunity for public comment online, and now Daniel has the results for us. So Daniel, I will let you share.
All right. So I sent this out just a little bit earlier. There's a lot of charts and stuff here, but it just kind of helps to make it where it can be filterable. I have not gotten a chance to add in, but I was hoping to get a filter in for all of the comments within a certain walking distance of the project. I mean, if you look at the overall comments, you can see that that is the majority of the case. Most of the comments are kind of focused around the normal town Chase Street area. So we got 111 responses, and to just kind of run through the context here. So this is everyone's reason for use. So out on top is shopping and restaurants and exercise, within commuting shortly after that. These are not filters, same as these right here, just because the way that the data is. But this shows current use type and future use type. So you can see that there is actually a drop in vehicular use. So we had 98 people currently use it of the 111, and it would actually drop down to 82 based on the survey. So that's a reduction of vehicles, as well as an increase of 35 people said they would be more likely to use their bikes after this implementation. Additionally, 79 people currently use it for walking and jogging, and that would bump up to 90. We even had people say they would be more likely to use transit as well. Obviously it's not like true, actual measurable metrics, but it's, a good way to look at the intent of those people. This is our current use frequency. So most of our comments came out from people who use it multiple times per day. And if you actually click on this, you can see that in the future, that changes. 44 of those people will continue to use it multiple times per day. There's not really any patterns here other than just the way that people mention that. But those who originally said that they use it weekly, 9 of those said that they would probably bump up to daily. And then with daily and monthly, at this point, the numbers are so small, it's not really statistically relevant. But 6 people said they'd be more likely to use it multiple times per day versus daily. So beyond that, we can also filter things out here. You can actually see for the Prince Avenue to Boulevard alternate options, multi-use path, alternative 2 came out with 55 responses, and bump outs with Sharrows came out at 51. So that statistically is basically an even split between those two options for that segment 4. And then for segment 1, you can see we had 66, which is about 60% responses came back with a 3-lane option versus the 4-lane. So that kind of supports what you guys were saying there. That would be considered statistically significant. And then as far as the priority goes, y'all basically hit it nail on the head with the priority. So Prince Avenue, segment 4 is the highest priority. 84 people wanted that high. 78 felt that Boulevard to Oneida was a high priority, and then it drops down to 37 people said that segment 2 was a high priority, and 32 said that Chase Street was a high. Now with these, they did have some pretty good medium priority scores there. I think ideally we would have kind of average these scores out to give it an actual kind of value to really be able to rank them. But this is pretty telling to me. Essentially, people are more concerned with building out the 2 sections in the area where there are currently residences and shopping centers, and not so much looking at that future development that goes out currently out towards this more warehouse area, more commercial zone. I will say that I put all of those signs out there, and I think one of the scariest parts was when I was trying to cross at this intersection of North Chase Street, just to put the 4 signs up on the 4 corners. There was not a time available that I had to cross because there was always traffic moving, cutting, turn right, turn only, or left turns. And so I basically kind of had to run across when I didn't see any cars for a while. But that being said, with all of that, you can really go in here and you can say the people who, wanted the multi-use path, you can see what their use and current and future types would be, as well as kind of filtering it out this way to just see how that breaks down. So, with the multi-use path, 45 of those people said it was a high priority. With the bump outs, 36 said that it was a high priority. So that's kind of interesting as well. So I also sent out some PDFs and Word documents with our summarized comments. I forgot to mention over here on the right, this is all of the written out comments. And then just down at the bottom, oh, they're actually not there anymore. So I'm going to double check and make sure all of the comments are showing, because it is possible that there's something that's filtering them out. So besides that, do we have any questions?
I just want to say this is really, really great, and that your map stories or story maps have really been developing beautifully. This gives us great information, and it's good to know that what we thought and what we voted on is the reality on the ground. So we're not completely out of touch. So thank you, Daniel.
Absolutely.
I've just one question, not having been involved with the upfront you've done so far, which this is phenomenal. I love being able to look at these data in this fashion. But how much input do you think was received from individuals that work, around the businesses in the loop, around that loop area, and segment 1 and 2 being, of course, then low priority or ranked to lower priority?
Yeah, it's hard to tell based on like number where someone's working. Typically, we ask for their kind of home address. So it's possible that people who work in this area may live in these spots, but it's really hard to tell. With the questions that we ask. But that is an interesting point. We always try to balance out between too many questions and getting survey fatigue and useful information. But I do like the idea of where do you work, where do you live, like just not that we're trying to like map out someone's daily route or anything, but just to be able to pull that information as well. That would be really cool.
Yeah, to Randy's point, I mean, we're going to get more responses from the folks who live in the neighborhood, which is good, than the people who work at out at these chicken plants. And I don't think that it makes the people like I don't think it makes the value any less so for segments 1 and 2. I think that they are critical in providing connectivity, a different kind of connectivity, a connectivity to a place of work that maybe folks in the neighborhood aren't, maybe that's not their first concern. Maybe it's getting around, getting into Athens,
right?
But still very valuable. And like we talked about last time, I see this Barber Street, the whole 4 phases, 4 segments as the first step in getting out to Cathwood Drive and Vincent Drive, which these are connections we want to make to those areas where folks may not have a car or have just one car in a family. So it's critical.
Yeah, I think that's very important to consider.
And to
maybe
that
for
point, go ahead.
just a thought, Daniel, maybe for future programs on mixed use corridors, I know that we send postcards out to the parcels, but I wonder if we could get in touch with the large businesses to provide them flyers that they could put in a common area that would also have like the QR code or a link, that kind of thing.
And I did do some of that. I did not get a chance to work with the chicken plant over there, but I did reach out to West-Clarke's, and she put me in touch with TSAV, and I dropped off flyers at Half Moon Outfitters up front, as well as Habitat for Humanity, and they had signs up there as well, and at the brewery. So I tried to reach out to some of those areas that did have people coming in from outside, but that is a good point. What about the workers? And they might see those signs coming in every day to work, but that was another issue I had was I really wanted to put up a sign near the plant, but I couldn't find grass. Everything was covered in concrete, and I didn't have any tape or anything. So, we had pretty good coverage at the residential entrances and, kind of along that corridor as well as up here. But I would have preferred that we kind of reached out that way.
Yeah, and Daniel, when I did reach out to some businesses, a couple of them did mention that they had talked to you or that they had looked at Barber Street, and they were now going to go fill it out or something like that. So they did acknowledge being contacted and reached out to.
Awesome.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the mayor and commission's response at the agenda setting session? I know that Mayor Gertz mentioned having a multi-use path instead, and I think that there's just maybe some lack of understanding about what a separated two-way bike facility is, because we don't have any in Athens, and why it's critical, or why why we have that design option here. Things like that. And also I think Commissioner Edwards was wondering, like, why can't we have the multi-use path from Boulevard to Prince? And it's real estate, and it's honestly, it's political willpower. I mean, Mark, you talked about taking out more parking, and I think that that's something that, we as a commission would be down for, but it takes political will. Does the mayor and commission have the political will to remove that many parking spaces for bike ped infrastructure? And that's only a question they can answer. Because we're down, probably.
Ronnie, I don't know if you remember, but when we explored the multi-use path alternative pricing for the entire corridor, what was the width that they were using for that pricing? Do you happen to remember? If you are talking, oh no, you're not muted. You might have stepped away. What I was gonna mention was just that, with our downhill sections of Greenway, when we're specifying widths, I was just on the Greenway this weekend in a 10-foot section, and there was a guy with a dog walking, and he was kind of on the left side. Me and my girlfriend were on the right. 2 cyclists coming from behind, one coming towards us, and we were all kind of on this bridge in one spot where we're kind of like mingling and working around to get through each other. And that's okay on those multi-use paths. Typically, especially in the larger sections, we recommend a 14-foot minimum for our more heavy use corridors on the Greenway. But for some of our downhill sections, especially around the curves, the engineers had it designed at 18-foot width, which I don't think I don't think there's any spot, since they're mostly straightaways, where we would need to do that. But, in terms of the grades and the speeds that you can get up to on bikes, I just feel like 12-foot, if that is what our quotes were at, and that was kind of an oversight on my part, because we did compare the cost of multi-use path versus to a bike cycle track, but even that thinner width was not going to save much money. And so if anything, it's going to end up adding more money to build a facility that would be wider, depending on what the engineers recommend as far as safety goes, because it does come back to them in terms of liability if they design something that is unsafe for people to use.
I mean, I think we had a lot of conversations about that, the steep hill, and why it would be safer to separate bikes and have bikes going one way in each direction, and we went through all of this in quite a bit of detail. I think had a lot of good conversations and a lot of good input from you, Dan, Gil, and Stephen, and Ronnie. And I guess I'm wondering, how can we communicate that more clearly to mayor and commission, because we really dove deeply into this. And I certainly understand somebody who maybe isn't quite as deeply immersed in it saying, hey, just multi-use paths sound good. They work, but I think we all came to a pretty clear consensus why they weren't necessarily the best option for some of these segments. And so I guess the question, Lauren, is how do we communicate that? Is there a way that we should be communicating that?
So, and let me jump in for just a second. And if you'll remember, Mark, not only did we communicate internally, but we worked with a consultant to create a memo that would also get that point across and to the mayor and commission.
Okay.
And so at the night of the agenda setting meeting, Daniel and I were talking and hoping that between then and now, they will have had time to read that memo. It didn't seem like everyone had really absorbed that.
Okay.
And that's really the most official way that we can communicate this information. Unofficially, of course, you can talk to individual commissioners and get that across, but
right.
it really depends on if they're able to kind of digest those documents before the vote.
Mm-hmm. So would it be okay for us to attach that memo as we contact mayor and commission, just so they have it handy and don't have to try and dig it up? Would it be okay for us to do that, saying it came from y'all?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
That's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Okay, that'd be great. So if you could maybe just share that with the members of the commission, and then we can strategize about communicating to our commissioners and folks we know and the mayor to try to get our perspective across.
This is Jake. Couldn't we use Carol here? Couldn't we debrief Carol about our thought process and help her advocate explain to the commission exactly what we were thinking in cases like this?
I think part of it is that Carol is the one reading the memos, and in the last agenda setting session, she did acknowledge that the Athens in Motion Commission had we had 2 special called sessions. So I think she's aware, and I think she's trying to put that out there, that there's already been a lot of work done. And I believe during the meeting, Commissioner Link acknowledged that she wanted some time to just look at the memo, which she did. So I think it is going to be those individual one-on-one communications as the final piece, and that's just going to be something where we regularly have to be on our contacts and follow up and say, I heard you say this. Well, in the memo we say this, and this is why. And here, even your own personal thoughts have value there. So,
And I think there's one thing is kind of that I've noticed just over the years, not even in this particular situation, is that you could read a memo and you could get that information, but you have a question of like, well, that's that circumstance that's outlined there, but what about in this situation? And I think something that was brought up was we have chosen multi-use path as our designated bike infrastructure, which, you know, we have bike lanes in Athens. We've got a lot of them. And so, I mean, bike lanes, multi-use path, you know, this is just another form of bike infrastructure, and we don't have any one set. And even our protected buffered bike lanes on Hancock, you know, that is something different than the bike lanes that you would see on Cedar Shoals, which need to be widened, you know. I'm planning on, we do have some questions that were presented to us, and so I'm planning on writing a response, and I'm going to try to keep it on more on the brief side, so it's a little easier to absorb. But I do think it would be helpful for you to reach out and talk about those concerns with them. You know, I also have some contacts over at the CED. That was the college that I graduated from for my master's, and so I talked to one of my old professors who he is, you know, very excited on the bike front, and I was kind of like, you know, okay, devil's advocate, like what would be the concern with doing this here? And you know, he brought up an interesting point. You know, I don't know how I personally feel about it, but you know, when introducing a new type of infrastructure to a community, you want to make sure you have like a really solid location and use case. If something were to happen on this section and there is an accident because, you know, people don't quite understand how to use a two-lane or a two-way bike track, then that is more likely to kill the future for all two-way bike tracks. Versus if it were a multi-use path and something happens, that's not going to kill all the future multi-use paths. I understand the argument, you know, and he mentioned even if a two-way cycle track is like an ideal for this spot, you could always build the multi-use path and then come back later in the future and build a two-way cycle track. And we just can't. There's too much infrastructure that we need to build in our community. We can't build something and then come back and rip it out in 10 years to rebuild it again. So, you know, it's not like a stance or anything, but it's just kind of something I wanted to put out there. If y'all have thoughts about it, I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, I think I would like to see the memo that you got, and Stephen sent us a bullet point from the memo, and then we can emphasize those points when we're in our communications. And so the mayor and commission are going to vote on Barber Street a week from now on Tuesday, June 1st, right?
Yes, I believe.
Yes. Okay, so we have a week to just reach out to them and offer to answer questions.
Okay.
We're kind of running behind. Any other closing thoughts on Barber Street? And yeah, there's a lot of great comments in the comment section. So we thank everyone who took the time to fill that out. It's really helpful, and I just love reading them. Okay. All right, I'm going to pass on to Todd for park planning updates.
Okay, I'll be quick. So far on Firefly Phase 2, we've gotten the concrete installed basically all the way from Hancock. They're working from Hancock back towards town. So they have the concrete installed from Hancock to about the East Lawn Memorial Cemetery, which is near Thomas Concrete and so forth. And then I believe last week or so they set the bridge that will eventually be over the loop. So that bridge is set. They should be pouring the concrete on the bridge deck this week, I believe. And so we're just quarter mile or half a mile or so from the racetrack. So they're moving pretty quickly to get that done. The trestle and the greenway projects, they're in the process. The Greenway Cemetery Trail, they're working on securing materials. And so they're working in the background. They're just not physically doing a lot of work on the ground at this point on those two projects. So that's the three construction projects that we got going on right now. So that's a quick update.
Thank you for that, Todd. And Aaron and I got an update on that yesterday during T-Splost. And Keith and Derek have been preparing us for years that there's going to be a bridge and it's going to look like a bridge over nothing. And I'm just, I may or may not have seen it in person yesterday. And it's pretty exciting. I just love the way that we can think ahead and have our projects work with, coming up GDOT projects. And so that way the trail will continue, no interruptions. It's pretty amazing.
So Lauren, I have
Also
a
that will
question.
Go ahead, Teresa.
And Todd, does this address the problem of the Waffle House crossing or not?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, bummer.
That's bridge number 5. It's going to be in the next T-Splost as a proposal. Someone should do that.
Yeah, it's
Say that.
a $10 million bridge, probably somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, someone submit that. We're going to talk about T-Splost here in a bit. Someone submit a project, please. But it is pretty great that it's amazing that we have 4 bridges in, I think, less than 2 miles on the Firefly Trail. And so this has been the most expensive segment and it's almost done. So great. Well, thank you, God, for that update. It's always lifts my spirits.
All right.
All right. On to the next. All right, major agenda items. Complete streets policy update. Before I pull this up, so to fill Randy in, Athens-Clarke County had a complete streets policy. It's been in place since 2011, 2012. One of the first tasks of this commission has been to revise and update this policy. And so we have been working on it. We began working on it more than a year ago. We're a little bit delayed by COVID and finally came back to the full commission, the full Athens in Motion Commission with the policy. And we are hoping to take a vote today. Roswell, as y'all will remember, said he couldn't be here, but he was kind enough to review the policy and also give UGA a heads up and solicit some comments. Something that came up was a bit of a concern, like would the materials and the standards that we hold our staff to, so TPW in this case, is it the kind of thing that would be free, readily available, or would there be charges to view that? My response is that these are materials that are publicly available and that we did have TPW, of course, working with us on the policy. So we're not going to put anything in there that I'm not going to hold them to anything they can't do. Roswell also mentioned that the language was pretty strong, which is what we were going for because our last complete streets policy was reviewed and scored very poorly because it had no teeth. So there is more shall language in there. I'll go ahead and pull it up. And Mark, I know you had questions and I wanted to address those. Share. I want to share Chrome. Yeah. So can y'all see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mark, you had asked about the phrase "people rolling," and this does mean anyone with wheels. So wheelchair, skateboards, scooters. I did hear this phrase used. I believe yesterday when I was in, I'm part of this walking college now which is put on by America Walks and the American Association of Retired Persons. And I think that is a pretty accepted phrase.
Okay.
Um,
No, I specifically the scooters and things like that. There's been some controversy around them, and I just wasn't clear whether those were to be called out separately or what exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, I mean, I would be specific and put people skateboarding and scooting. I mean, I don't think we have really any problems with scooters. We have problems
Yeah,
with capitalism.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought this was supposed to be, oh, sorry, Mark.
No, just gonna say. I mean, I think it's fine as it is. I don't. I just was my usual overly literal self trying to understand this.
Yeah, and I thought too, well, I guess this is more inclusive too of people of different, mobilities in terms of, wheelchairs and mobility scooters too.
Yeah, if that's a term of art, then that's fine. Obviously.
And then, Teresa, you had asked about universal design principles. I think we know what those are. I could link to them, but then I wonder if we need to add more links to this document. And I think that we're trying not to do that.
Well, it sounds like an official thing and it's capitalized. And I feel like there should be some footnote or link in there to whatever we are referring to here.
Yeah. A
Otherwise,
footnote would work.
Okay. All right. All right, so Mark, I don't remember where we left off with this, but this is a good question. Scope, right?
Mhm.
So exceptions for a project or roadway that is not part of the Athens in Motion plan and conditions do not trigger consideration. Stephen, Daniel, do you guys want to talk about that? So basically, can we put this on stuff that's not in our plan?
So, for example, Pulaski Street, I don't think it's in any plan, right? It's not in the network plan. It's not in the Athens in Motion plan. Yet it's a perfect example of what needs a complete streets treatment since it has similar numbers of bike, pedestrian, and car users. That would be the one example.
My personal opinion is that I would want our complete streets policy to apply to all streets. Now, I guess I don't know about private roads, obviously, but publicly maintained. Stephen, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's written in that there are, that you start from the lens of everything should be put under this, looked through the lens of complete streets and then figure out feasibility from there. So I believe that's kind of written into the language of the policy right now. Is that right, Lauren?
Yeah.
I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about Pulaski Street. Okay, so it could be an exception, right? That's what this is saying. So if we had somebody in charge of TPW who decided to just kind of go and make it twice as wide and only for traffic and, no room for sidewalks or bicycles, could they do that under this? And do we want to allow for that? Do we want to write it in as something that we acknowledge could happen and nothing we can do about it?
I guess the first response to that is I think that no matter who's in charge of TPW, they don't get to really make that decision. That goes to mayor and commission to be decided. But you would certainly, it is good to think ahead, just think about not just the current administration, but how this policy will apply to the future as well. So that's a good point.
I would be fine to delete this sentence.
Yeah, the section A.
Mhm.
That would be my preference, I think. It makes it a more inclusive, complete truly complete the streets because it's now all the
Mhm.
streets. Yeah, and then there's still this discretionary, part C, which I think makes perfect sense. There are going to be situations where it may not be appropriate to apply it, and that's fine. That discretion is still there, so I think that's good.
Agreed.
Great. And I realize I've got some numbering issues happening here.
Uh-oh.
I just wanted to mention, this is Jake, that the Athens in Motion, we're charged with implementing the Athens in Motion plan, which recommends a new updated complete streets policy. And the Athens in Motion plan I believe, considered every public road in Athens-Clarke County. So just because something isn't a recommended tier anything project doesn't mean that that didn't fall within the scope of that plan. So it seems like something like Pulaski Street would not fall outside of the complete streets policy just because it wasn't a tiered project within the Athens in Motion plan.
Jake, that is an excellent point. Thank you for that. You're right, because all the streets were reviewed and considered, and they still matter even if they're not in our tier right now. Okay. Seeing if there's any comments. Right. So I have two things I need to do. I'm going to find a link or a footnote for universal design principles. And then I need to correct the numbering that's happening here. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling fast because this is going from 3 to 4. So I just need to be its own section. Let me see. With those corrections, would like to, if someone is willing, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the complete streets policy and move it forward.
So moved with the amendments as you proposed.
Seconded.
Mark and Teresa, you guys.
We're fast off the mute, man.
Yeah.
We want to get this done here. We don't want Jake to make mean comments about how slow and talkative we are.
Well, thank you. So I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Man, we've been working on this for a while now. Very excited to move this to the next level because this has been through several iterations.
Yeah.
So I will make these corrections. I will get with Daniel about the next steps and Stephen, and also just want to thank our former chair, Carol Myers, for her hard work on this policy. And thank you to the policy committee for combing through it several times. And also thank you, Stephen, for being with us the whole way, and Hillary and Daniel. So we've now had 2 bike ped coordinators on this. This is going to be the best complete streets policy Athens has ever seen.
And thanks to you, Lauren, for carrying it across the finish line. Great job.
I did something in this commission. Do y'all remember, did you guys get an invitation like before the pandemic where it was like supposed to be a mixer in 2019 for all committees and commissions and stuff? It was from the mayor. And I was like, I can't go. I haven't done anything yet. Now I feel like I can go. Next on the agenda. Okay. All right. Prince Avenue recommended projects. Mark, I do have that PDF that you sent that I could pull up unless you want to share your screen and do that.
You are muted.
I'm muted. I'm muted as well. I'm usually pretty quick off that. I can't share, so if you or Daniel could share that document. It's only
See
one
if you
page.
can now. I just made you present it.
This hasn't worked in the past. It's just, I'm
Okay.
still grayed out. I'm sorry.
No
Okay.
worries.
Yeah.
I've
I
got
will
it ready to go. Or
Oh,
do you have
great.
it, Lauren?
You can go right ahead.
So just as background, this was from a list of over 100 items that were combed from 8 or 10 different documents over 20 years, looking at how to improve Prince Avenue for all road users. I'd say the overarching theme as our discussions evolved was safety for all road users. And these are the highest priorities on a scale from 1 to, I think, 5. These all were rated between 1 and 1.99, I think. And
So Mark, the lower the score, the higher the priority, right?
exactly. Yes. Okay. Yes. Kind of like the English grading system. So the pedestrian improvements are at the top. So lots of crosswalk improvements. There are a lot of crosswalks where there's a diagonal street coming in, where there's quite a long, distance to cover for pedestrians. A lot of the buttons for signals are misplaced. Some of the mid-block crossings aren't awesome. We're going to be adding hopefully several mid-block crossings in the in-town part of the Prince Avenue corridor. The vehicular improvements, hopefully improving access to parking, perhaps with the Piedmont University's new parking structure. Some center raised medians, mostly in Normaltown, and then 3-laning Prince from Millage to Pulaski or Barber Street, or Barber to Pulaski. That still is being figured out. Protected bike lanes, and by protected bike lanes, we mean a bike lane that has some sort of a vertical barrier, whether it's one of those little posts or actual curb to protect the cyclist. That's because of the high speed and high traffic volume in the corridor, and relatively high volume, but certainly high speed. And then there were some general improvements. So that's all I wanted to say.
So this is what y'all are going to present to the mayor and commission.
Correct. That'll be the prioritization. Yes. And
Okay.
there's also lower priority items that we are organizing and will have in sort of a medium and low priority buckets. But that'll be more as an appendix. And we really want the focus to be on these really safety oriented improvements.
Okay.
I've got to say also, y'all have set the standard for kind of putting these into buckets and prioritizing them. We took the templates from Prince and are using that for Atlanta Highway and Lexington as well, because it's an impressive way to do it.
Well, Ellen Walker did a lot of the heavy lifting on this, and really kudos to her for her work on this. And also Clint McCrory made a lot of comments and edits, and it was a team effort, but Ellen really was terrific about this. So I'm glad to hear it's going to live on in other corridors.
Excellent.
So for us as a commission, do you want a letter saying, yeah, like we especially support the bicycle improvements and the pedestrian improvements?
Well, I'd like to certainly hear what Stephen and Daniel recommend. It seems like at this point it's going to be important for us to communicate our support for this to mayor and commission, and explaining why we think these are high priorities. And I think another thing we could do is also try to coordinate with business community in that area, who have been largely very supportive of these changes, including the 3-laning. The businesses along that corridor, several of them, of the largest, have been very supportive of that. I haven't heard anybody opposed, actually, among the businesses. I'm not saying that couldn't be true, but so I think our hopefully we can provide support to mayor and commission. I don't know that it's necessary for something to go to the Prince Avenue Corridor Committee at this point. I think really mayor and commission.
So that means
And I'm
go ahead, Stephen.
Stephen and
Yeah, just trying to think through the order of operations we did last time. And remember, they're not voting on this yet, so this is going to be a work session first. You could certainly send a letter of support or clarification prior to the work session, but it's most important that during right before this goes to voting the following month, you either get on the public comment minutes for agenda setting and voting session and send out a written word prior to those as well.
Okay.
The one thing I was curious about, if they're approving this project list before it goes to public input, it's at the process that they're going to be doing, Stephen?
I'm sorry, you cut out just a second there. What was that, Daniel?
Just that if they're going to be voting on this, or I guess it's just a work session, they're not necessarily going to change those projects, right?
Correct. This would just be informational. They can send comments back to the group, but they won't be making any changes.
Okay, so as long as they're not making changes to the proposed list of projects, I don't think that we would require a letter of support for the preliminary ones. But yeah, if they were going to do something, then that would change.
So we hang tight, let the mayor and commission have a chance to look over this list and go from there.
I think so.
Yeah, Diana Jackson is going to be doing the presentation, I believe, and she has a PowerPoint that she shared with the corridor committee members, describing that. I think that's what she's going to be presenting to mayor and commission at their work session.
And we will have TPW staff that will be talking during the specific sub-projects, so feel free to add some comments for Daniel to throw in there as well.
Okay. So thank you, Mark. So I guess we'll keep this on the agenda so we can follow back up with this and our next steps. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and make a note of that for next meeting. Friends Avenue. And let's see, should have received Jackson work session. Great. All right, and we'll hear about the rest of the other corridors here in a minute. Let me plug in my laptop.
I'm going to plug in my laptop too. Do you want to get me the plug?
Okay.
Where is this?
I think we're doing pretty well on time. So the next major item on our agenda is a big time announcement, and that is T-Splost is being moved up. And I'm pretty sure it's definite at this point. I think there's some details to be worked out. But Randy, you might be aware of this, but right now most of our funding comes from a transportation special local option sales tax. It was the first one that Athens passed in 2018. Both Aaron and I served on that committee. We continue to serve on T-Splost. And we had been thinking ahead, both because we need to come up with what our next tier 1 projects will be that we'll work on, but we also need to pitch a bucket, ask for a bucket of money from the next T-Splost, and I thought we were going to have until the end of the year to get that together, but it's we have until I think August 1st is when submissions are due. I know, Teresa. Yeah. I think that's tentative. They're working out specific dates, but the plan is to move up the referenda from November of 2022 to May of 2022. So a year from now.
Yeah, and I spoke to, I was at a conference last week, first in-person event in over a year, but for city management, and Blaine was there, Blaine Williams, and he brought it up to me that this was going to need to happen. So obviously it's you know, it's the highest levels of government that this is going to need to be moved up. So
Yes. So thank you, Aaron. So that means two things for us. So when we are asking for funding for our bike ped projects, and we have a couple of other ideas we want to put forth, we're going to mention the kinds of projects we want to do next and have a list, but that's not something that's going to end up on the official project description, because we want flexibility to do the projects that need to be done in the order that makes the most sense. But we will need to have a list, some idea to present to the ACC residents who are on this committee, who will be looking at these projects in September and October of this year. So Daniel's already working on some stuff. Policy committee has already been talking about this. So I think at the next meeting, we'll have some ideas to present to you all as a commission, but we just want to give you a heads up that we don't have a lot of time. So we'll need to get something together and probably have you guys approve a presentation and so on and so forth. That's part one. Part two, the mayor and commission have a month to get together a citizens advisory committee for the next T-Splost. If you are interested in serving, please reach out to your commissioner. Every commissioner gets to choose 2 people to be on it. If you have questions about what that service looks like, feel free to reach out to Aaron or myself. It's a lot. But it's in a condensed period of time. So we met twice a week for a couple of months to hear project presentations. The Splost office fed us. I guess they will continue to do that. Keith has promised everyone will have cupcakes. That's not true. but I keep bringing it up.
they were delicious.
They were. Poor Keith.
Yeah.
He's like, all the hard work I do, and all you remember is my cupcakes that my daughter made. I think it was his daughter, right?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So if you guys think you have the time, we'd love to have you serve. We'd love to have some Athens in Motion folks on there. And I think, Teresa, you might have brought it up, like whether it's a conflict of interest, and it's not. I mean, we're public servants. We're not getting paid. This is not for ourselves. I'm not sure what this is for. Just kidding.
and it's a lot of work on the front end, the first few months. But it's great to have people on the commission who are, you know, for bike ped transit oriented, because you know, it's great. There's people on there from all different backgrounds and all different experiences. But if we don't have enough people on there who are oriented towards bike transit ped, there's a good chance that we won't get as many projects through. So
I'll contact Mike Hamby and submit my name. And I hope that the work doesn't get started until September, because I'm going to be on the road in August, I think.
Yeah, there might be some initial meetings, but I believe that the project review on the current tentative timeline doesn't start until after Labor Day. I think that's what I've seen, but this is all to be determined. Also, if you guys know anyone who you think is interested in that kind of thing, please tell them to reach out to their commissioner. Because y'all, it's I mean, this is, I think, the toughest time of year to get together a body like this. This is when everyone's trying to take their vacations. And I know the Mayor and Commission are trying to do their budget for the year, and there's all this other stuff. So trust me, you'll be helping them out. Yeah. Daniel, is there anything else that you want to say about the upcoming T-Splost as far as the projects go? I mean, we're going to talk about it in policy. I know.
Yeah, just that, outside of our main ask of, bike and ped funding, I think it'd be good to hear from you guys about some ideas you might have for other projects, even if it's not necessarily part of Athens in Motion. You know, the one that I've been kind of mulling over with Stephen, you know, we talked about it a little bit, but you know, an accessibility bucket of money that we could really use to, you know, address those accessibility issues if there's a utility pole in the middle of a sidewalk, or you know, something that can't necessarily be covered by our maintenance dollars, but is really more about improving access. So I mean, technically maintaining our sidewalks would include something like, hey, we need to upgrade this, but you know, with the way that funding works and everything, you know, often the most important things for our maintenance budget to cover are those kind of, you know, falling apart, cracks, sidewalks, things like that. And we can't necessarily get around to those pricier things with utility poles, or, you know, not standard accessibility, you know, aprons. So just, you know, that's an example that I am kind of brainstorming, but I'm definitely interested to see what other ideas you guys can come up with, because you know, we won't necessarily get every single thing we put in, but I think it's important to think about, you know, different novel ways to get funding for our things.
Thank you, Daniel. Also, thank you, Aaron, for chiming in there. Again, let us know if y'all have questions. All right, we're actually on time. I just want the record to reflect that that we are keeping up with our schedule today, not getting behind. So next is our general update. So we've gotten through all of our major items. We have regular updates. First, we'll hear from Daniel, and Daniel, I'll just have general stuff for you. So about 10 minutes, and then 20 minutes for our remaining committees and commissions that we haven't heard from yet. So Daniel, if you got anything else for us, take it away.
So yes, I do. I am meeting with Jared. Sorry, I've got a bunch of sticky notes over here, so that's what I'm looking at. A meeting with Jared. Me and Stephen are going to meet with him and go on the scoring metrics for their new tool that would allow us to rescore all of the Athens in Motion projects. I'm hoping that, you know, if it is ready to just plug and play, we could potentially get some updated scores in time for us as we look at these projects. Now, with the way that you described it earlier, you know, as long as we are phrasing it properly, then we can figure out those scores afterwards and then use the funding towards those highest scoring things. That'll also play out really well moving ahead, you know, 4 years into the future. If we still have funding at that point and it hasn't been allocated to a project, you know, we could see what is the highest scoring thing that year. So we'll get into the details there, but I'm excited to get more details on the scoring metrics. We are continuing to work on the RAISE grant. There's a few different things that we're at. You know, we're just kind of bulking out the sustainability and equity portions of that grant. It's for $25 million along North Avenue, from the bridge all the way up to where the loop is located.
Did the name of the grant change? Because I thought we've been calling it the build grant. Is it something now?
Yeah, so it changes with every administration change. So it was the Tiger Grant first under Obama, then it was Build under Trump, and then now it's RAISE under Biden. So,
okay, thanks for the clarification.
Also kind of changed their the priorities. So we're also hoping that with the equity and, you know, bike and ped access, multi-use path, that kind of thing, that we could potentially score a little higher this time. I know this is the third year we've put that in, so fingers crossed, but we have a little bit of work to do on that, not too much. We also, okay, then on Clayton Street, there is a little bit of extra room. Stephen, you might be able to speak to a little better, but I was approached about the potential of adding in bike corrals on Clayton Street. So I wanted to talk to you guys to see kind of feelings on that.
So places to hook up our bikes.
Right. So I think, there's like bike racks, which is usually one or two spots where you could, put a bike. I'm pulling up some.
These are, yeah, Daniel, if you're able to share, I haven't been able to find the concept that Diana shared, but if you'll just picture along the parking areas, there's some gored out areas that I think are maybe about 10 feet long by, have you got it? Okay.
Well, this is just kind of examples of bike corrals within the pavement.
Anyway,
but I am pulling that up.
Okay. Yeah, there's a number of spots that's just sort of painted with markings that have potential for different use, and I think bike corrals could make a lot of sense in some of those.
Sounds great. I mean, that would be really good improvement. Define gored out for me, please.
Yeah, when I say gored, I just mean if you picture like the white striped areas.
Okay,
that's what gore is.
Okay, thanks.
And the other, without including these, would it be car parking that would go there, or other?
Honestly, it's the leftover bits after they've already got the parking figured out. So these are just unused areas.
Good. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's a double bonus there. Yeah.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. I have the email that I can share. Well, maybe. So did it come as an attachment or was it a link? Here it is. I found it. Okay, let's try that again. You'd think I would have had this ready to go for you guys.
That's okay.
Sounds like it's been a long day.
Yeah. Right now, it's just freezing up on me.
While Daniel's pulling that up, I think the only concern I have is when we have bike parking that is too close to a structure to where you can't actually pull your bike through and use the facility, because they'll try and like nudge up the bike parking against a wall, and then I can't actually use it. I would have to move my bike sideways. Now, I think a lot of our facilities downtown are mostly okay. I've mostly seen these at, well-intentioned private businesses, or old bike racks that are fixed. And so I think that we'll have that issue here.
Yeah, usually, like what you're talking about, where you have to put your front wheel in a brace, and you're like, well, you can only lock up your front wheel here, or something like that too. Yeah.
Or you can't even bring your front wheel through.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, yay.
Okay. So they have motorcycle, scooter parking kind of in these areas here, with some of that leftover space in that gore. And so were they discussing, Stephen, were they discussing putting it in the triangle here, or kind of in to replace some of those potential spots?
So the triangles that you've got are what she was talking about. The large rhombuses are what we would use, what the environmental stations would be. So like that's your kind of covered hidden dumpsters. But the triangles plus potentially removing some of that motorcycle parking. I'm not sure how much of the scooter parking they're going to keep. But I would start with the assumption that it's the triangles as shown with the black markings.
And I'm basically going to be taking kind of what y'all have said. So like, for instance, here's the triangle right here.
Yep.
And so I'm kind of wanting to kind of pick y'all's brains about, kind of ideas for what you would like to make sure I can catch, so that we can, I don't want them to put these up against the building, that kind of stuff. So, with doing something like this, obviously, it wouldn't be anywhere around like the ADA handicap spaces. But in some of these triangles here, do y'all have thoughts?
Yeah.
I have a thought.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Okay, so do we have a standard design for the bike corral that we would like to have? And if so, is there a way to draw kind of a square or a rectangle around it that shows the clearance that it needs, so that, we can see if it will actually fit into those spaces?
That would be great. I don't believe we do. Daniel, do we have, I think we were going to be reaching out to Bike Athens and Georgia Bikes and some people to see if there was a standard. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I know there's certain kinds of bike racks that we definitely don't want. There's the ones that are the wheel benders, and then the ones where all the bikes fall over, the kind of swoopy one. Todd has actually done a lot of research on bike racks for leisure services. Todd, can I impose on you to talk a little bit about what you
basically there's three styles of bike racks. There's a one point of contact, which are the wheel benders like you're talking about, and the swoopy ones. There's 2 points of contact, and then there's the 3 points of contact, and those are the most expensive ones, but they secure the bike the best. And so the inverted U-shaped ones are a 2 point contact style bike rack, and then the 3 point basically secures the wheel. And there's a company in California that has some, and Leisure Services looked into them, but they were costing 2 or 3 times more expensive than the inverted U shaped ones, and so we chose not to pursue those at this time.
And I'm pulling up some inverted U bike racks. That's just it's basically like a inverted U.
So Mark, are you still online? What's the state of the art in Europe? I know you're into that stuff.
Mark, we can't hear you.
Dang it. Sorry. So in Antwerp, I got off the train and there were literally 1,000 bicycles. And I think it was the inverted U that was just one after another, is what I remember correctly, if I remember right. I can go back to some photos and see.
This kind of shows what you're talking about with the 2 points of contact here. Extra secure. It keeps the bikes upright. And then, I think these measurements can kind of also outline what you're talking about, Teresa, with maybe having it painted on the ground. And so that'll be a worthwhile question. Would that have to run through our striping or traffic department to get their feedback on doing that with those score areas?
I don't know that it would really affect them that much.
I wasn't sure if there was like a standard.
And these areas, they wouldn't be raised at all. The corrals, they would just be painted, right, next to parked cars.
Right. So that would be the interesting part, is that it's actually on the asphalt, and so you wouldn't have to go up on the curb or into the sidewalks to park.
Like the inverted U outside of Wuxtree.
Yeah.
Sits on the sidewalk and kind of take up half the sidewalk, hooking your bike up.
Yeah, let's check that one out.
Can we see an example of the 3 contact? If anyone has one, and then Yeah, it does make me, I have liked having the cracks on the brick sidewalks. I think I do worry a little bit about people colliding with my bike. So I have liked it when they're there. And I think the inverted U, it's simple, it just works. It's not fussy. It will keep my old bike from falling over. But then I understand the advantage of not having to have cyclists suddenly come up on a sidewalk when there's pedestrians. But it doesn't look like with the current Clayton street concept that there's any danger of anyone potentially backing up into one of these bike corral tentative stations. But I do, it has always made me nervous when my bike is on the street with a vehicle. And, it takes folks a while to learn to navigate our downtown. And sometimes there's a lot going on and maybe they hit a curb or a bike or something.
Yeah, I asked that question for the same reason. I feel the same way as Lauren, that it's certainly not a deal breaker, but even like right there, that one picture that shows those little the little vertical, something small like that, just so people are less likely to even just come over the way people park so badly and park really close to bike racks and stuff because they feel like I'm at the end, I've got plenty of room here, and then they open their doors into your bike or things like that. Certainly not a deal breaker. Love having the corrals, even if it's just paint, but that's one thing I agree with Lauren on too.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah, so we could look into doing some of those little turtle shells, kind of half circle bumps or half sphere bumps, and that'd be something we could ask traffic engineering what they'd recommend.
Cool. Yeah, because I know it's expensive to raise up a corral, for probably prohibitively expensive, but even those could be really helpful.
And also we wouldn't want to mess with that stormwater flow too much. So having things like the little turtle shells could be a good alternative.
Cool.
Yeah. And the further back we can get from the road, the better.
Yeah, great comments. That's exactly what we were looking for, to get y'all's comments for this, and we'll take that back to Diana, as well as our conversation, whatever conversation Daniel has with Bike Athens and Georgia Bikes.
Yeah, and this is, I believe this is Todd, is this the 3-point rack?
Yeah, that's it. The ground control was the one we looked at. We talked to their representative and got a quote from them for those style bike racks. They actually have some pretty cool YouTube videos on the product, and if you have time to, in your spare time, look them up and everything.
So the 3 points of contact on this are, sorry, I'm like having trouble finding like a zoomed in photo that shows it.
So it holds the wheel at the bottom, and then I believe it holds the bike at 2 points.
Got it.
Up towards the top is what it's doing. Because see, where you pull the bike past the thing, and so the wheel is right there where you just pointed, and then the bike frame attaches to that dual-sided thing that pokes out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if that answers your question, Lauren, kind of what that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've never seen that before. Daniel, was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we move into the rest of the corridors and committees? And I know Teresa wanted some time.
I think we're good.
Cool. All right. So next, committees and commissions, and I think we'll breeze through a lot of this, but I know Teresa, you specifically wanted 5 minutes to give us an update, so please.
Okay, well, when I asked for it, I was in California, and I participated in a user group meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning, California time, but it was a good meeting. So basically where we are with the Atlanta Highway is, and Stephen, I think you can provide insight into this, but there is some issue with GDOT as to why we cannot start working on the intersection of Atlanta Highway, Timothy, and Mitchell Bridge. So that's got to be put on hold for a while. I personally feel it's very important that we deal with that intersection because it's horrible. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me on that. But I don't know what the specific problem is. So then, you know, the rest of the data, you know, we had a tremendous amount of support for the sidewalk projects to complete the pedestrian loop around Athens that Commissioners Neesmith and Hamby had talked about back before COVID and back before we lost Commissioner Neesmith. So there's a lot of support for the projects connected with that. And that does include some sidewalks south of Epps Bridge or multi-use path south of Epps Bridge. And that was the most popular project of all. So I know that doesn't fall in the current T-SPLOST because nobody ever, you know, pointed it out or thought about it or anything. But in the context of the T-SPLOST that's coming up, there's going to be a proposal for the Timothy Road and possibly the Mitchell Bridge portions of that pedestrian loop. So I just wanted to, you know, share that. Then within the group, we're going to be presenting a response, you know, to the mayor and commission, basically saying, you know, here's what the data showed and here's what we recommend. And so our next meeting, which I can't remember when it is, but it's coming up and I'll let you all know. Our next meeting, we're going to be talking about the internal survey that we did, and I don't know the results of that, to see what the recommendation of the user group is going forward. So that's basically it from Atlanta user group, Atlanta Highway user group.
Teresa, when you said that south of that Timothy Road south of Epps Bridge was not on T-SPLOST, what do you mean? Well,
the sidewalk projects that the community in that area wants, from Epps Bridge down to Macon Highway, they're not. I mean, they're like tier 3 or something like that in Athens and Motion.
You mean in the Athens and Motion? Yeah, tier 2, tier 3, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, so they haven't been included in anybody's funding plans up to this point. So even though the Atlanta Highway User Group is talking about T-SPLOST 2018 and the $4 million that's available there, the most popular projects were, you know, those Timothy Road projects. And then Mitchell Bridge was second most popular. So that got the most traction. And so, I mean, I don't understand exactly how all the funding works. And that's one reason why I want to get on the T-SPLOST committee, because I'd like to really understand it. But, you know, it's just, it's something that there's a lot of demand for, and there will be demand for funding for it. So at some point, you know, there will be a T-SPLOST proposal. And I believe that, you know, the residents of the Timothy Road corridor are going to go ahead and put one forward. But in the meantime, we have $4 million of T-SPLOST 2018. And so I don't know what the user group is going to say about the Timothy Road Mitchell Bridge portions. You know, I don't know what the user group is going to vote to do on that. So I just, you know, wanted to share that with you all. So you sort of understand what's going on there.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Lexington, any updates? Jake?
So Jake mentioned that I was gonna take on that update, and then I actually passed it on to Steven. So if that's okay.
Yeah, not a problem at all. So Lexington and Atlanta Highway are really on parallel tracks right now. The biggest update from them is that they are doing a very similar internal ranking survey. It'll be that same 1 to 5 scale, and they've categorized them into the different types of project types as well. So that's there. I think we'll have a lot more information after their next meeting, which hopefully we'll get Daniel, Jake, and myself. I'll be on that one.
Awesome. Thank you. And Mark, did you have any additional updates from Prince Avenue besides this list?
No, although I did send to the Athens in Motion listserv a couple of photos of bike racks in Oxford, England, and Amsterdam that I found in my photo collection. So
thank you. Thank you.
and they're a flattened inverted U.
Cool. All right, on to our committees. I think we'll breeze through this pretty quickly. Roswell isn't here, but as I said, he did share our complete streets policy with the University of Georgia. So we appreciate Roswell keeping them informed and fulfilling that role for us. Grants and data, you have the grant that's coming up and will be due May 31st for an RRFB at Little Oak Street. Do y'all want to give us a quick update?
Yeah, sure. The grant is, I'd say, mostly written at this point. It's due on Monday. I'm hoping to get comments from anybody who wants to comment. I think it has been shared with everybody in the commission. Use the suggesting mode if you would, and then we're going to transfer it into the online application, which is basically just a Google form. And so we'll just copy and paste it into that and hopefully submit it over the weekend. But I really appreciate everyone's input on that. Jake, James, who's not here, Daniel, been, pitching in, and Alex Bond from Leisure Services. So we appreciate that. Now, if we could only agree on what the R's stand for in RRFB, we know flashing beacon. I loved yours, rapidly rotating. That'll get your attention for sure. It's actually, I think it's red rectangular flashing beacon. I think that's what it stands for.
It's rectangular. I want something that's like rapid retro flashing beacon, kind of like a teal triangle with some pink in there.
It's always going to be a rapidly rotating flashing beacon to me. So
yes. All right, and just to fill Randy in this location,
No, go ahead.
Yeah, this location where they're proposing to put this RRFB signal. There's a social path up to the Firefly Trail along a fence, and there's this one section, this road, Bernie Street, that is just kind of cut off from the trail, and this is hoping to remedy that. So folks there, have a visual signal and a safe way to get to the Firefly Trail.
Okay.
And next on our list, we have a new, I'll go ahead and move on to education and communications. We have a new date for the Open Streets event, Teresa, right? Oh, you're muted. Teresa, we cannot hear.
It's going to be, I think, in October. So I got this notice when I was in California, and I was focused on my kids. So
yeah, I wrote it down because I was excited. October 10th from
that's right.
2 to 5, 3 to 5.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's right. October 10th. I'll verify that.
Okay. Yeah, so please mark your calendars. It'll be all hands on deck if you're around. It's going to be nice and cool out, we hope. Thanks for Teresa for sticking with it. And you're working with Leisure Services on that still, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. We appreciate them. Policy committee, we began talking about the next round of tier 1 projects. Of course, when we last met, that was before we realized that T-SPLOS moved up and accelerated. So you'll hear more from us soon. Okay, on to other committees and commissions. You've heard a little bit from Aaron about T-SPLOS, but I will turn it over to him for additional comments. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so we did talk about definitely the bridge that we voted on just to go, well, we didn't vote on that. Sorry, we talked about the bridge over the Firefly over by Atlanta Highway, Lexington Road and the Loop. And what else did we talk about yesterday? Sorry, Lauren.
Oh, we talked about Barber Street, and one of our committee members was very excited about the possibility of an RRFB flashing beacon at Barrow Street. I think that's what she said, right? That's what Trez said, was Barrow Street.
Yeah.
And we learned a new term from Ronnie about warranting. So you have to make sure that an RRFB crossing is warranted, and there will be a signal, but even if it's not warranted, it could still happen. So hopeful for all of our parents and really anyone that will get that RRFB at Barrow Street and other locations along there.
Hopefully we can warrant a three-way stop at Barrow and Barber. That would slow traffic, make it a safer turn. It's a very unsafe turn from Barrow onto Barber right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just because you're down below, you're basically
Yeah.
below the level. So.
And the Trail Creek REM trestle is sadly going to be torn down soon, but it's going to be a great, as we all know, great bridge is going in to replace it. That was another thing we discussed, just went over a little bit yesterday, because it's going to be an awesome bridge when it gets done. Which probably next year? It's a little delayed but probably next year, 2022, spring or summer, right? I think so. Oh.
Todd would know that one. I believe it's 22.
Yeah, it's a full year plus a construction schedule for it. So yes.
Yeah.
So
if you're wanting a nice clear photo, right now is best time as ever because all the trees have been cut down. So it's a great time to get out there and take a nice before.
Yeah.
I'm taking a picture with the after.
Yeah. Just anybody listening, it's the bridge is, well, we love it in so many ways. It's not that historic because so much of it has been replaced over the years. So.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. And Jake, do you have any updates from the Greenway Commission?
I think we've talked about most of the Greenway Commission stuff. We talked about the Greenway Network plan update process. And Todd covered all of the sort of Greenway developments in terms of, I guess the only other one is the Carr Creek Greenway spur is sort of in the planning and the planning stages right now. So that's pretty exciting. That's going to offer a bunch of connectivity out to Barnett Shoals. That's pretty much it.
Nice. And then last committee, this is pretty quick. I'm joining the East Athens Local Action Committee for the Firefly Trail. And I hope that we'll have a letter in support of the grant application for the RRFB that our Grants and Data Committee is applying for. And so I haven't met the folks, but we are meeting tomorrow. And that's it for our meeting. Our next date is June 22nd. And yeah, and at some point we're gonna talk about Sycamore Drive. It's just that our meetings are so full. I haven't had a chance to talk about that street and putting it on the Athens in Motion plan. But we are gonna have a pretty full summer with especially with this impending T-Splosh getting organized. So thanks everyone for keeping us posted about your vacation and stuff so we can make sure we have any other announcements, thoughts, things I missed?
Lauren, quick, yeah, I assume that'll be virtual, or I may have missed discussion about meeting in person.
Yes, we'll continue to be virtual as far as I know. That's a great question though, because this came up in T-Splosh yesterday. So Daniel, Steven?
It's up to you guys. There's no requirement, as far as I know, from the county to continue virtual, but you know, if y'all feel safe and you want to transition over, I don't think we have worked out a way to do live streaming for in person. I talked with Jeff Montgomery a little bit about that, and so we would be losing the live stream capabilities. So we would just go back to kind of in person, and then the meetings would get updated, and people can show up in person if they want to be a part of it. Did I cover everything, Stephen?
Daniel, I have a question. Is there going to be any way to allow commissioners to be present for voting virtually once we go back to in-person meetings?
Well, I guess I would say, why do we have to go back to in person? Not for the safety thing, but just because it seems like there are a lot of other things we can do in terms of sharing documents, you know, the chat, sharing information. I'm adjacent to the 4th largest lake in the world right now, and I'll tell you, it's not in Georgia, yet I can participate in this meeting. So, and people travel and people have work obligations and childcare obligations. You know, I think I'm certainly open to keeping it this way. I love y'all, and we'll have some informal social gatherings, I hope, but you know, I'd throw that out there because I can see some good things too of this format.
This
Yeah,
is Jim.
maybe
I'd like to.
Go ahead.
I'm interested in proposing for all my commissions having a quarterly in-person meeting and the other meetings be virtual. I think there is real value to all being in
Yeah,
the same.
I think that's a great idea. Yep.
Yeah.
But for me, there's a huge amount of transit time involved to wherever we end up meeting. And so I've really enjoyed, although I'm not a big fan of Zoom and WebEx, I've really enjoyed being able to cram this meeting into my day more efficiently.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like that idea too, because I was the odd person out in the T-Splost Citizens Advisory Committee who wanted to meet in person, at least some, because I just miss getting to talk face to people, and I like that compromise.
Yeah.
Totally like that. Totally like that. And I want to see Randy's facial hair in person. I want to see that mustache.
There you go. A long time to work this. It's gonna have to shorten soon, though. It's getting hot.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how about this? Well, I'm going to actually be out of town in June when our next meeting. So at least June and July, provided the Public Information Office will let us, let's continue to meet online for those months because folks will be traveling. And we'll check back in at the July meeting about, you know, whether we're going to do something quarterly, what are we allowed to do,
Right.
and go from there.
Okay.
So that will help with planning.
Yeah,
Good plan.
and I'll also throw out, not to like volunteer spaces or anything, but we do have a few smaller conference rooms that have WebEx capabilities. So if we needed to, if like a smaller group of people wanted to get together and then other people could remote in, that could be a possibility. I know, Stephen, we have one there at downtown office, and Pound Street has one. So
Yeah, we've talked about a kind of a hybrid approach to people who could want to be in person in a conference room. They can. We just need to get some better audiovisual equipment to make sure the mics work correctly for that kind of gathering.
You also have to be pretty intentional about making sure that you include the people who are remote is what I've found. It's pretty difficult just because of human nature. You prioritize the people who are in the room. So you might have to, Lauren might have to impose a little more structure on us.
I'm only 8 minutes over.
Yeah.
I think we're doing good.
well,
That was not a subtweet of your time management. I think you've done great, Lauren.
All right, thanks for that conversation about that. And it looks like we've got some options, so we can pick this. We can have this conversation again in July. But for now, yeah, meet us where you are. We'll be happy to see your faces. All right, that's all I got. Thank you all, and welcome again to Randy.
Yep. Thank you.
Glad to have you. Holler if you have any questions, and I'll see y'all later.
Very good. Bye now.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.